That evening, it was as if nobody stayed at their duty post. The cooks left the kitchen, the engineers left their base, the supervisors stepped out of their offices. Even the bosses came downstairs. The warehouse, bigger than anything he had ever worked in before, stood with its ceiling high above them, metal beams crossing like ribs. Normally, it would be loud in here, forklifts lifting, men shouting instructions, steel doors slamming. But that evening, it was quiet. Not the quiet of an empty building, the quiet of people waiting. They were all waiting for one thing, for the fridge to be opened. And whispers moved through the warehouse like wind through the beams. Whoever repairs that fridge, they said, might become the next chief engineer. They might even hire him as the chief contractor. Every man there knew why this moment was bigger than just a machine. It was opportunity. It was recognition. It was power. But this story didn't start there. For you to understand why that moment mattered so much, we have to go back. Back to the day Chidi left home at the age of 23. Our story happened somewhere in Port Harcourt many years ago. The exact company doesn't matter, neither do the names, but the lesson? The lesson is everything. My father was barely 23 when he left the village for the big city. Just a village boy with little money and quiet curiosity. As the bus rumbled through the dusty roads out of his village, he pondered. He'd never really imagined leaving home. Now he was on his way to the big city, to a place bigger than anything he had ever seen, where machines hummed like giants and where he was sure opportunity waited, even for someone like him. When he first got to the city, he didn't arrive as an expert. He arrived as a young man fascinated by electricity. He had always wanted to understand how electricity worked, how the current flowed, how it moved, how wires carried life through machines, how machines were repaired. He was very eager to find an electrical shop in the city where he would start learning. Soon after he arrived in the city, he got a job. Himself and other young men around his age would offload goods from trucks in a company and get paid at the end of the day. Nothing much, just basic work to get him through the days, and by night he will return to his home. Home for my father then was a big, old, empty container he had found under the bridge. He didn't have or know anybody in Port Harcourt. Neither did he have any friends since he had only just arrived, so he made the empty container his home. Life continued. For weeks, he continued his day job, while still looking around for where he would fulfill his heart desires. And then, one day, the change he had been seeking for started. It was a slow day at work that day. There were less goods to offload, and even less trucks were coming in. Feeling bored, my father decided to take a walk around the environs where he worked. And after walking around for about 20 minutes, he spotted something, an electrical repair shop. He became excited. This had been his dream, to learn about electricity and how to repair electrical things. He could finally be able to fulfill his dreams, he thought happily. However, there was a problem. He could not leave the job where he was being paid to go and learn where he would not be paid. But after thinking for a bit, he came up with a solution. He decided that whenever there was less work in the site, and at close of work by 4, he would go over to the electrical shop to see what he could pick up. And since he knew he would have to pay money to apprentice, money which he didn't even have enough of, he thought that he would just hang around close enough to the shop and pick up one or two things where repairs were ongoing. And so it began. Every day after work, instead of going home straight to rest, he would pass by that shop and he would stand at a distance, a safe distance, watching, quietly, studying how they opened the machines, studying how they handled wires, studying how they diagnosed faults. He didn't speak, he just watched. And as time went on, he picked up a thing or two about machine repairs. But then one day, the shop owner, an elderly Igbo man, called him. "Hey you, small boy, come here."
Why are you always standing here every day?
My father froze. What he never knew was that the man had noticed him from the first day he started coming there, but had been quietly observing him to see what he wanted. My father walked close to the man, terrified that he had been caught.
I want to learn, sir.
He said when he got to him. The man looked at him carefully.
Where are you from? I am from the east, sir.
The man paused. They were both Igbo, and something softened in him. Then the man told him, "Then why didn't you come and register like other boys here?" "I don't have money, sir," my father replied. The man considered him for a while. Then he said gruffly, "Well, you want to learn? Then stop hiding. Come closer and learn like your mates here." My father was overjoyed. He would become an electrician. And so his work began. After explaining his work situation to his new boss, the kind boss agreed to let him join others in his free time and by the close of work. Now here's the part people don't see when they hear about success stories. My father didn't have a house. He didn't have relatives there. He didn't have comfort. Every night after learning during the day, he would go and sleep under a bridge. Under a bridge in the big city, with the noise of cars above him, with mosquitoes, with uncertainty, but still, the next morning, he would wake up and go work, then go learn again. About a week after he started, the shop owner called him and asked him, "Where do you stay?" My father hesitated, then he told him, "I stay under a bridge, sir." The man was silent for a moment. He knew after the war, it was difficult for young boys who had migrated to the city to start a life. Then he said, "Pack your things. You will stay with the other apprentices." My father happily thanked him. The next day, he moved in with the other boys learning the trade. That was the first door that opened, not because he begged, but because he was hungry to learn. And that was how my father learned refrigeration repairs. That was how he learned electronics. That was how he became skilled. He learned, he watched, he practiced, he became good. Then he became better than good. 2 years passed. He continued working with his boss. He had been taking on jobs, small jobs, big jobs, and he executed every single one of them perfectly. Then people started noticing. His name began to travel quietly from workshop to workshop. And then one day, his turning point came. A major oil company had a problem, a big one. One of their biggest fridges, the type that stored critical equipment and supplies, had broken down. One full day had gone by. They had tried every engineer they could find, every electrician in town, every expert in their own company, just to get the fridge working, but nothing had worked. Port Harcourt then, it wasn't like now. Shops were few, people like that, skilled and reliable, were quite rare. So both the expatriates and the Nigerian bosses in the company were frustrated, desperate. They drove around the city looking for someone, anyone who could fix this fridge. And as fate would have it that day, they drove towards the area my father was working. When they asked around for any electrical shop, they were directed to the small electrical shop which was owned by my father's boss. These bosses walked in, explained the urgency of the matter, and my father's boss looked at them, nodded, thought for a second, then he told them, "Take my son Chidi, he will do it." The bosses looked at my father skeptically. He was only a 25-year-old young man. How could he repair something so huge? But his boss insisted, "Let him go with you, he will be able to fix it." Left without a choice and being desperate, they took my father along with them. When my father arrived at the company, he was speechless. It wasn't like any place he had been before. Not even close. Buildings, metal and glass shining in the sun, machines humming, pipes running like veins through the walls, fridges bigger than small houses, blinking lights everywhere, men in uniforms working purposefully. He had seen work, yes. He had fixed things, yes, but nothing like this. Nothing so enormous, so precise, so alive. It wasn't a small place at all, and in the center of it all stood the fridge, the one that everyone was anxious over. It wasn't the kind of fridge you see in homes. This one stood taller than a grown man. Thick steel doors, industrial locks, a machine that cost millions back in the 90s. But it had suddenly stopped working. It would run for about 30 minutes, stop, start again, run for another 15 minutes, and stop again. This fridge stored perishable goods. Whenever it stopped after 30 minutes, goods would start to defrost. When it ran for a while and stopped again, production would halt. Money was leaking every minute. Every time it stopped, money stopped with it. Engineers had come and gone. The company engineers had tried and failed. External engineers, everyone had tried without success. And on that day, the bosses hadn't planned to stop where my father worked. They had just been looking for anyone, and that was how they found him. My father immediately brought out his tools and went to work on the fridge. Over an hour later, the fridge didn't work. It would come on, stay 30 to 35 minutes, and go off again as usual. In the fully air-conditioned warehouse, my father started sweating profusely. The company engineers started checking their watches. One of them laughed quietly. Another shook his head. After 3 hours, the fridge still didn't stabilize. The company bosses, who had gathered to watch him work, started walking away in disappointment. Now the mockery became louder. The other engineers started mocking him.
Small boy, so you think we that are here don't know what we are doing, Abi?
Another one said,
If you don't know what you are doing, just get out of here.
and the third one said,
When engineers like us who has been in this field for over 20 years cannot repair this fridge, you this small boy who is just a roadside electrician, you think you can do it?
and the mockery continued. But my father did not react or respond. He just focused. Suddenly, another engineer shouted, "Boy, go and call your boss. You don't know what you are doing here. You're wasting our time." But my father still didn't respond. And like that, another hour passed, and still nothing. My father felt like crying. He wanted to call his boss, but there was no way he could go back on his own. He was very frustrated at that point. Then he decided to walk outside for a bit. Taking permission, he stepped outside for a few minutes and took deep, calming breath, bringing all the knowledge he knew to the fore. A few minutes later, he returned and tried yet another method. By this time, the warehouse was mostly empty, except the company engineers who had made it their sole purpose to mock and laugh at him. After about another 30 minutes, my father adjusted one final thing, and with a soft click, the machine hummed. Not loudly, softly, gently at first, then fully. The fridge had started working, but nobody really cared. It ran for 20 minutes. Nobody cared. 30? 45 minutes. The laughter had started dying down gradually. An hour. It didn't stop. That was the longest it had gone without stopping. Everybody there was stunned. The laughter had changed to surprise. The mocking engineers had been stunned to silence. The bosses heard and started rushing back to confirm. Everybody watched anxiously, some hoping for it to stop, some praying that it would not stop. The fridge had run steadily for an hour and 10 minutes now. And at that point, my father was exhausted. He had spent almost 5 hours there, and he asked to be taken home. But before leaving, he didn't celebrate. He didn't argue. He simply said,
Don't open this fridge. I'll come back tomorrow.
Then he left, hoping the fridge would actually stay on until the next day. 5 p.m. the next evening, the same car came to pick him up again, and he was informed that the fridge had remained closed as per his request. When they got to the warehouse, it was a spectacular sight. It was like everyone in the company had heard of the young fridge repairer from the previous day, who had the audacity to make such a request and had come to watch what was going to happen. That evening, it was as if nobody went to their duty posts. The cooks left the kitchen, the supervisors left their offices, even the bosses came downstairs. The warehouse, which was bigger than anything he had ever worked in before, was quietly tense. Normally, it was loud in there, but that evening, it was quiet. Not the usual quiet of an empty building, the quiet of people waiting. And whispers moved through the warehouse like wind through the beams. Whoever repairs that fridge, they said, might become the next chief engineer. Every man there knew why this moment was bigger than just a machine. It was opportunity. It was recognition. It was power. Now they were all waiting. The tension was palpable in the air. My father was surprised by the number of people he saw when he got there, and fervently prayed in his mind that nothing had gone wrong overnight. Then, under the curious gaze of everyone watching, he walked close to the fridge and asked for it to be opened. The fridge had been left alone through the night. No one touched it. No one dared. The boss instructed.
Open it.
Someone stepped forward. The handle clicked. The seal broke. Everyone held their breath. The key was turned, and the fridge was slowly opened. What happened next? Nobody in that building expected.